Welcome to the Business of What's Next, the show where ambitious leaders cut through the noise, decide what truly matters to set up their business for what's ahead. I'm your host, Matthew Shipp. Today's guest is Stefani Seek, founder of Seek Coaching and creator of the 5 V's methodology. After 25 years in corporate sales and leadership, Stefani traded burnout for balance, building a practice that helps executives and professionals realign their work and life with purpose. We dig into what happens when success stops feeling like success and how alignment, intention, and mindset can help you lead with authenticity and build what's next. Stefani, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Matthew. I'm excited to be here.
So let us know a little bit about, about yourself, how, Seek Coaching came into be, what's really garnered your focus into helping people the way you help people.
Oh, thank you for asking. I was in corporate sales for over 25 years, both as an individual contributor and as a senior leader. And it was about 3 years ago that I decided it was time to leave Salesforce. I was a regional vice president over half the United States, over our top 50 retailers. And I was just burned out. And I also knew that I had a mission to help coach salespeople. And so the vision for Love the Sell at the time was to work with B2B sales organizations, but also to dip my toe in the water of individual coaching and coaching on mindset and abundance, and also coaching some of the basic blocking and tackling for salespeople. So that's where I got my start. And now I'm in year 3 and decided to rebrand from Love the Sell to Seek Coaching. Seek is actually my maiden name. It was spelled a little differently, S-I-E-C-K, German Seek. So I changed it to Seek, S-E-E-K, so everyone would pronounce it correctly. And I like the idea of the magnifying glass with the compass. And I'm moving into executive coaching as well. So I didn't want the sell word to be limiting to the people that I can help serve. So I continue to work with sales organizations and sales professionals, but I now have quite a few clients who are executives at major financial institutions, oil and gas, and I really enjoy working with executives as well.
That's right. So what was the onus? What brought you on to rebrand into Seek Coaching from Love the Sell? Was it like the people you were serving and what kind of brought that up?
Yeah, the people really informed it because
Hmm.
even though I was going to market as a sales coach, people from my network or someone who'd see a video I'd post on LinkedIn would come to me and say, look, I'm not technically in sales,
Hmm.
but can you coach me? I'm looking for a coach and I really like your style. And I have a methodology called 5V. And the 5Vs apply whether you're a sales professional or you're leading a team at a manufacturing company. It's all about doing the work to get very clear on what you want for yourself, how you want to show up in your career, and to create alignment between life and career. Because let's face it, we hit our 40s. I'm 49. I don't mind sharing that. We hit our 40s, even 50s, and we say sometimes in our career, is this all there is? Or I'm starting to run on empty, or I'm
Hmm.
feeling stuck. But how do I change? How do I change maybe as a leader? Do I want to change jobs? What
Hmm.
does that look like? And that's what I help people work through.
So with the leaders that you work with, what are the patterns you see most of the time when they're reaching out to you? What are some of their challenges they're having? I know when I've worked with some leaders, my big thing is they're always looking to step out of many of their roles, many of their hats they're wearing. What do you find a lot of?
Yeah, Matthew, I know you've done a ton of organizational coaching as well. And you're right. Oftentimes there's this deep seated unrest.
Hmm.
There's it it bubbles up and it can come in the form of, I need you to help me figure out, can I find a new job? What's the path? And it's very career focused. But underneath that is, I'm feeling out of balance. I have maybe a toxic leadership system and I'm not able to express authentically who I am and it's frustrating me. Or my wife or my husband probably can't take one more dinner time session of me venting about just why I feel out of sorts. Like I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but either we have new processes in the corporate environment, or I have a new boss, or something's limiting my growth, or I'm not feeling fulfilled. It's all a riff on those
Hmm.
things.
So all revolving. So is there a kind of a common point where leaders are? Do you feel like they're stuck, or they just feel like they want out? Where are they? Where I guess when they come to you, is that the ideal client thing where like, here, take my money. I need to fix this. Where are they then?
Yeah. So I'll speak to a couple specific examples and of course protect their identity.
Hmm.
But one of them said, I cannot figure out why when I'm sitting in the boardroom, I seem like I'm the cranky person and I
Hmm.
can't get my idea across. That was from a man's point of view. I There's another female executive that I was working with who felt minimized in
Hmm.
a room of executive leaders. In fact, I have a story of a woman who was asked, she was the only executive, the only female executive in a room of about 10 men.
Hmm.
One of the divisional heads turned to her and said, "Could you take notes for us?" And it can be, yes, wow, right? It can be just something like that, that triggers the things are not well.
Hmm.
What is wrong? And I'm currently working with someone who came to me and she said, I show up, I have great ideas, but for some reason I just feel almost tears of frustration when I walk out because I haven't communicated my ideas well. And what impresses me with the people that come to me for coaching is they're very self-aware. They're not coming to me blaming the toxic boss or
Hmm.
blaming the change in environment. They're saying things have changed or I might have a difficult leader or I have a great leader, but I'm frustrated with myself. There's
Hmm.
something about the way I'm communicating that I'm blocking something, or do I even need to be here anymore? I'm 48 and I have these kids and they're going to college and I have golden handcuffs. If I leave now, I'm giving up some of my stock. Does it make sense to move companies? And so we work through all of that and we talk about even those deep seated subconscious beliefs that 90% of our subconscious beliefs were programmed into us by the time we were 7. And that has to do with money, even how we see money. And
Oh yeah.
money factors in big time to career coaching.
So as you just talked a lot about their being more self-aware, and I think, yeah, those type of leaders are great to work with because they're open to like, I don't know what it is, and I'm ready to tackle when I can find out what the heck it is. You mentioned some place where he couldn't get his ideas across, and that reminded me of a lot of times when I'm having like a team alignment and I have the CEO or the owner in the room. I let them put their idea out there, but I give them the fact is, like, maybe the idea is not coming across because the team hasn't been able to put out their ideas. Let's put them all out there equally with nobody knowing whose ideas are whose, and let's see what comes out the other side of this filter. And often that's just what it was, and it wasn't their idea, it was like, "Oh, based on these ideas that I'm getting, my idea needs to be modified because I didn't know certain things were happening." And I just noticed like, and this happened to, I was going to put an age on it, but that's not true. I just actually recently had a client myself that was very young and kind of struggling with the same thing as another person I had in the past that was much older and struggling with the same thing. And it was just the how to utilize their team the best. So do you ever see some of it's like more of like, okay, self, but have you looked in the mirror at yourself and really started to see what old habits you have?
Oh, yes. And I do want to rewind to where you said you had them anonymously put out
Yes.
their thoughts. I mean, that's genius for a group session, Matthew. I love that you do that because,
Semi-anonymous, but it's pretty anonymous.
yeah, I mean, well, there's two people
Yeah.
in the room, right? But
Yeah.
if you have a larger group, it could be
Sure.
semi anonymous. And that gives them the freedom to articulate without fear of ramification. How will this look? Is someone
Hmm.
going to ding me for having this perspective politically? Those things you think
Yeah.
about that corporate dynamic. So, yes, one of the V's I mentioned in my coaching process is voice. And what I like to do is work with people to figure out not only how do you show up in your meetings, how are you expressing your ideas,
Hmm.
That all starts with your inner voice, and we forget about the inner voice. So if our inner voice is telling us this is something to fear, you haven't gotten the last 3 meetings right, or you have articulated your ideas and there was blowback, there was ramifications for that, it can start to create filters that disallow you to show up as your authentic self in your
Hmm.
corporate environment. So, really peeling that back and doing some work of let's audit your negative thoughts. We
Hmm.
think the research shows we think about 60 to 65,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are subconscious. And to even become aware of the 10% of those that you can stop yourself and say, wow, that was a really negative thought, or that was a limiting belief. And we work on replacing that thought with a new thought so that we can convince our brains that that old thought about, something that causes
Hmm.
fear and anxiety, if you're going into a meeting with a toxic boss and how do I handle this? We reframe that to say, I'm perfectly capable of showing up and speaking what I need to communicate. And I know that things will work out for the best for me. We consciously and deliberately reprogram so that the inner voice starts matching with the outer voice. And that's what allows us to sleep at night. Oh, that was
Yeah.
another thing. A couple of executives and sales leaders for sure are like, I am losing sleep. I have the Sunday scaries.
Hmm.
One of the main reasons they want coaching is just they wanna feel good again. They wanna feel peace on a Sunday night.
Oh, cool. I'd like to, yeah, I want to revisit that losing sleep thing because I've run into something as well. But you mentioned the subconscious. I've always wondered if everybody talks about develop a growth mindset. I'm like, is that something you need to do more subconscious than it is just telling yourself right off the bat? So you're telling yourself to tell your subconscious this. Is that the way you see this working?
Yeah, it's tricky. So there's a lot of neuroscience behind this, and our brain is actually wired for certain thoughts. And the biggest thing to realize is that sometimes our thoughts lie to us. Sometimes
Mm.
our thoughts are not true. So, a very simplistic example is if we were raised by parents who, as well intentioned as they may have been, said money doesn't grow on trees, or, you prepare for the worst case scenario, then when you're 45 or 55 years old and your brain is, or you, actually it's your heart, it's kind of your heart and soul
Mhm.
saying, this is no longer a fit for us. But your brain reverts back to that programming it always had that money doesn't grow on trees. You better
Mhm.
save for a rainy day. Then you are subconsciously risk averse. It's very difficult to take that next step because your brain is trying to protect you and keep you safe.
Yeah. And that's actually great into the losing sleep piece. I've found that this was most something more that I ran into for people kind of overwhelmed. And well, what leader's not overwhelmed and behind schedule, or even if they're ahead of schedule, they think they're behind schedule. Was initially actually physically not typing it out or anything, but using a pencil and physically writing out what you want to do for the next day before you go to sleep, just before you go to sleep. And since the action of writing it down is you are drawing essentially, and that is actually imprinting that into your subconscious to set forward what you want to do for the day, or at least let you know that your tasks have a place to live, and you don't have to keep it all upstairs while you sleep and forget. That was something that I've seen as a practice sometimes when after a workshop there's like we have a million things to do. How are we going to keep it all track? Go home, write it down, prepare your test because I always have people test their solutions, not just do them to the end and come back and iterate on them. So that's just one way to keep people from becoming overwhelmed, and it also helps keep people accountable to themselves and others. So do you find that you have ever heard anything along those lines and help people kind of get unstuck from where they are?
I definitely have. I mean, you're spot on, Matthew, with just write it down, get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper. The unfortunate thing about completely digital age that we're in
Hmm.
is we forget to use the old fashioned tool of hand or head to hand and
Yeah.
writing down things. There is a magic that happens when you do that
Hmm.
because just going through that mental list is or even just typing it into your phone, it's different than writing it out with a pen. So I do recommend people keep a journal next to their bed.
Okay.
That I'll add something to what you just described, Matthew. And it's very powerful to just set an intention. So yes, you might have your to-do list. There are just certain things we got to get done,
Mm,
and you have the to-do list. But I like to encourage people to set an intention. Tomorrow,
okay.
everything's going to go smoothly. Tomorrow, and you say it in the positive. We often as humans articulate what we want in the negative. So we'll
Mhm.
say, well, I sure hope that my boss doesn't come at me with this, or I sure hope that difficult team member is out sick today. And instead, we need to say, I expect that all my meetings are going to flow smoothly and on time. And those intentions can be even more powerful than your to do list. And then after you've slept, your subconscious is cleared out a little bit, your brain
Mhm.
activity is down. You've gone, in those theta wave states, and you start to wake up and go back into alpha. And then you can restate your intention. Oh, today, my intention is that everything flows smoothly. And
Mhm.
when you start to practice that, it actually starts to work. It's crazy. You have to stick with it. Like, make it a habit for 30 days and see how your life transforms. And you can use it in all areas of your life. If you're dating, you can use it that way instead of saying, I, I don't want to find someone who mistreats me. You say, I expect I'm going to find someone great when I'm out there dating. And
Mhm.
your brain won't believe it at first. It will sound like a lie, but the more you do it, your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary. It's
That's crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. So I was going to ask, what kind of process or tool have you found most effective for the leaders you've been talking to when they need to kind of initially cut through the noise of everything that's going on? Because when people approach you, they're approaching you with probably 1,000 different things. And you're like, okay, no, we got it. We kind of diverge on what's really the root cause here. So I guess what I'm asking is, what do you use to kind of get to the root cause?
Well, so the 5 V's, we start with values. That's one
Hmm.
of the first V's. And I actually have all my clients go through a values exercise. If you ask any of us adults what our values are, typically you're going to get family, faith, relationships,
Hmm.
things like that. Maybe someone will throw in balance or health. But I use a tool that has almost thousands of value words. It's crazy the
Wow.
nuances our values can take on. And when we go through that process of distilling, what are my values now? What do I value? And we get really granular with our values.
Mm.
We can use that as a foundation to then start to filter our voice through that. We filter what we say to others, how we show up with ourselves. And, when I start with that, and then weeks later, all my clients end up having some kind of career transformation. It's amazing. And they'll come back to me and say, wow, I have this abundance of choices. I could go this route or this route or this route. We go back to the values and we run it through that filter. And that helps them have the aha of what they should do.
That is awesome. That sounds a lot like my keystone for groups. So the keystone is within your business in the next 2 to 3 years, what kind of change in the world do you want to make? And I have them as a team create that, and that becomes their purpose statement. And then I have them identify the top risks that could keep them from attaining that. And you kind of use your value system, and you go through all your ideas and you filter what your ideas through your value system. I have them filter all their ideas and their projects and their strategies through their keystone. So,
That's so
and I think,
smart.
yeah,
Do
it's
you,
really,
Matthew, do you find like do you find resistance to that, or do people look at you like deer in a headlights at first when you ask them to create those statements, or do they flow pretty easily?
that's very interesting. It all depends on the individual and how well you prepare them. So I like to sort of do an individual interview with each person and make sure they're all more or less aligned with what we're doing and what they think the outcome should be. And then what I really find is and then taking them through and literally showing them everything I'm gonna do ahead of time, like, setting the expectation. Even setting the expectation as an emotional expectation, like, "We're gonna do this, and it's really gonna suck, but once we get through it, this part's gonna be really cool, but we need to get through this sucky part first, and, you know, this is gonna be really uncomfortable." So you're not surprising their system, you're setting up their system.
Yes.
to go
Oh,
through.
that's so good, and I love that you prepare them for the sucky part.
Hmm.
I prepare my clients when we're doing this one-on-one stuff, men, women, all different ages. When we do that first values conversation, there are tears. There is
Oh,
a shaky voice. There is
mhm.
something that comes out. And I find that usually the barrier to hiring a coach, just like if you needed a therapist, typically the mental barrier is, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to face my feelings.
Yeah.
And you're doing that in a group setting.
Yeah.
So I love that you do one-on-ones first, so maybe they can get a little of that out, because
Yeah.
in front of a group, that's a challenge. I admire that you do that one-on-one, "Hey, this is
Hmm.
a safe space, it's confidential, let it flow, get it out." And that typically seems to be what holds people back from saying, "Yeah, I do want to work with a coach," is, I gotta face it all."
Hmm.
That can be scary.
Oh, yeah. So, working with the leaders you work with, I'm sure you've kind of developed a pattern recognition here. So, what trends are you seeing that leaders aren't prepared for but should be?
Okay, that is a great question. So, first, they're not always prepared for how they're going to absorb other people's energy and reactions. You have a lot of well intentioned leaders out there who tend to take on the weight of the world, and they end up in this energetic depletion. And that's why we have burnout, is because they can't necessarily separate that person and what that those people might be putting on them, good or bad. I
Hmm.
had a leader who he was the go-to. Everyone in the organization was like, "Go to this guy if you want mentoring.
No.
Go to this guy if you're
Hmm.
stuck." And he was such a good person. He had as full of an executive plate as any other executive, but he would be taking additional time to coach all these people. And we had to get him to the point of saying no so that he could protect some of his own energy. He'd go home on a Friday completely depleted, not having energy to work out, not having energy for his family. And so it's that crossing of boundaries. A lot of leaders get promoted because they were really good at that first function that they did. They were, and then
Hmm.
they just keep getting promoted. And what I think corporations don't teach their leaders is how to set boundaries and how to communicate boundaries.
Hmm.
I think some leaders, and we know them all, can be jerks. And I think they got into jerk mode because the only way they could figure out how to protect their energy was to just show up as a jerk so people would leave them alone. And there's a better way to do that. So
Yeah.
I do feel like that's something executives all around have to figure out, is better boundaries.
Yeah, I definitely with executives and other upper leadership, I think what they really need is to know if that this to say no or to suggest things as somebody has got their back to say that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to bottle that in, and that becomes water cooler talk, and that's the last thing you want.
Yeah, you don't want that outburst. You don't
Hmm.
wanna send that email you wish you could take back.
Yeah.
And having, there's a lot of mental health needs
Hmm.
that go into being a leader in corporate,
Yeah.
and paying attention to that is really important. So some companies are really good. They'll give their leaders a lot of resources, but you'd be surprised at the company leaders I have worked with that they just really don't get any resources to help them with their day
True.
to day.
True. So, if you could give one piece of advice to those overextended CEOs and corporate leadership individuals, what would it be?
To think about, are they hustling to hustle? Are they programmed in their mind that if they don't hustle, if their calendars aren't filled from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., that they're somehow failing as a leader?
Hmm.
Because the best leaders are the ones who create space. They create intentional space in their day to day. Like no matter what, they hold on to that 30-minute meditation they might do from 8 to 8:30. Or no matter what, they hold on to the 45-minute gym session they're going to do at lunch. Or they build in, I love building in thinking time into
Hmm.
your calendar. And if you have an executive assistant, great. You let him or her know that this is precious time. Like unless the board calls an emergency meeting or we have a cybersecurity breach, there's nothing that is going, and you have to commit to that. And what's amazing is the universe will construct around you saying how you want to schedule. I just watched too many executives being whipped around. They're being
Mm.
whipped around by everyone else, but they also feel this sense of guilt. Like if I'm not back to back, if I'm not hustling and I'm not working hard enough, and think about all of us in our probably late 30s to 50s, even 60s, we were programmed with you must work hard to be successful.
Yeah.
And the new way of thinking and why my tagline is alignment is the new success is that when we're in alignment, things just happen. You'll find that certain issues get taken care of. Maybe someone you're managing figures it out. They don't need you for a certain thing, and your calendar starts to get lighter and
Hmm.
it makes room for creativity. So, executives have to create room for the creative to flow in because that's why they're executives. They were promoted because they're usually the big thinkers, they're usually the strategic thinkers.
Okay. So yeah, I really like your approach to not only alignment, that alignment brings clarity. And I usually I'm the other person. I'm trying to bring people clarity so they have alignment. So I always like these
I like that.
these overlaps. So you again shifted over to seek coaching because the leaders were coming to you saying, "Help me out, help me out, help me out." What do you see for yourself in as the future of seek coaching?
That's an interesting question. I ask myself that a lot. So, part of the rebrand of Seek Coaching, and I don't mind sharing it because if anyone Googles Stephanie Seek, they're going to say, wait a minute, isn't she a love and dating coach? I actually am. I'm the author of two books for women
Hmm.
on dating and relationships. One is for young women to help them avoid toxic relationships and to learn how to bravely and courageously speak up for themselves. And then the other is for women post-divorce or women who've never met the love that they wanted to have. And I was separating that. I was intentionally not showing up on LinkedIn with my books and the dating and relationship coaching I do.
Hmm.
And I started to feel like I was out of alignment. Like, who is Stephanie? Stephanie puts on this one hat that's doing sales coaching for an international company and one-on-one with an executive. And then on Instagram, I'm doing the dating and relationship advice. So that brand of Seek coaching
Hmm.
is going to allow me to be the coach that I am, deploy the 5V process across all these different audiences,
Hmm.
and my mission is just to help people love themselves more, whether it's in a corporate environment or a home environment, relationship environment, so that they can show up in their authentic voice and create the life they really want. It's never too late to change your mind. It's never too late to create a life that fulfills you. And my mission is to help people just get into that joy and happiness.
All right. So are you gonna be at hosting or be at any events, or do you have any promotions or anything that or where to find you actually, where people can if there is a leader out there, an overwhelmed leader, whether they be a brewery, a leader, or a finance executive, where can they find you?
Well, at the time of this taping, lovethecell.com is still up.
Okay.
Lovethecell.com. So if it is still up when you hear this, you can go there. Seekcoaching.com
Mhm.
is about to launch.
Okay.
So by the time this episode airs, seekcoaching.com might be live, but you can also reach me via email at Stephanie, and my name is spelled Stefani at seekcoaching.com. That email address is alive and well. And I can't say the name of the show yet, but I am a cast member in a new TV show that is coming out. We are in taping now. So keep an eye on my website and I'll announce that, but it's a very positive reality show.
All right.
And then I just launched my first course. I don't want to leave salespeople out of this. I love salespeople. I mean, I'm a salesperson and leader for 25 years. I have a new course that helps people overcome burnout and figure out where they want to take their careers. That is specifically for salespeople.
Mhm.
So again, that'll be posted on the new seekcoaching.com website, and they can check that out there.
Definitely you're full of surprises. Right. Red
Yeah, I
carpet,
didn't tell you about
on
the TV show.
books and TV shows and oh, wow. It's awesome. So, I mean, what I'm really gathering from this conversation here is that that authentic voice is the centerpiece that your executives have sort of lost. They've never been able to step back into that why they started this in the first place, and you're actually helping them find that. And alignment and clarity pieces and your five V's. Is that correct? Five V's.
Five
Um,
V's.
five V's it helps them set that journey and towards that clarity and realigning themselves almost with themselves in a sense. And that I really like the and you do that through that subconscious mindset. And like I said, we both agreed that the mindset is set in the subconscious. I still struggle with it, and it's not an easy thing to do. The repetition, it seems like consistency in everything is the way towards success, no matter what you're talking about. But yeah, I really, I can identify with that. Is that I use similar things for groups for decision makers, and so they can kind of set their goals, set their strategies. And there's a, I really think that I'm really curious what a well centered CEO that has articulated their voice well, what they would be like working with their team again, almost like rediscovering it. So that's kind of what I got out of it. What did you feel you got out of today's talk?
Well, I love how you approach coaching teams, Matthew. You do a lot of good work with
Mhm.
organizations and getting them all to articulate what they want and then row in the right direction in a very methodical, like good method way
Mhm.
so that they're not all over the board. And I guess what I am is kind of a microcosm of that for the individual. In
Yeah,
our minds,
totally.
we can be all over the place. You imagine the old cartoons with
Oh,
the devil and the angel. Well, there's like 20 little characters in between the devil and the angel of
mhm,
all different things we're thinking and the way we're talking to ourselves. And, anyone who's achieved a C-level position, they're pretty darn outgoing,
mhm,
able to articulate things very well. But it's more of the, gosh, am I really contributing? Am I really adding value? I mean, the older we get, the more we want our work to mean something. What is the meaning and the purpose?
mhm,
And we can go decades without taking the time to really look back at how far I've come, celebrate the gains, but then look at where do I want to go and be intentional. So something I'd like to leave your viewers and listeners with is, are you making your moves with intention, or do you feel like you're on autopilot? And it's when we get into that Groundhog Day autopilot that we've got to raise our hands and say, wait a minute, life can be so much more colorful. Life can actually be more fun. I resist the idea that I must be in this hustle culture to be successful. And then that's where they need people like you and me, Matthew, to help
yeah.
them get.
So for all of you out there, take that intention, take that intent, and go ahead and reach out to Stephanie at Seek Coaching, or is it Love the Sell right now, or seekcoaching.com. And if you feel these things talk to you, again, take that first step towards it. Intentional step. There we go. That's what I was looking for.
I
Intentional
already know.
step.
Intentional set. That sums it up for me. Wow.
And make it happen. And if once you discover that and your team wants to help, I'm there to help you too. So again, Stephanie, I really appreciate you being on the show. I think this has been super informative. I think there's a lot to learn here and a lot to take away with, and even just kind of try some things yourself. And you feel it's working and you need that push, reach on out. All right, Stephanie, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Matthew. It was a lot of fun.
All right.